This is to discuss this palace squeeze play that's going on, calling itself the Green Party, and who authored Flame Over Africa. Um, Squeeze play between the left and right finds Noam Chomsky and Charles Bronson as working together on the New World Order's criminal ultimatums. Of course, they have Putin behind the scenes. Now, this book came out in 2020 from Florida, and it's about the Fiume Susak Croatian metroplex, where fascism was born shortly after World War One, with the help of a man named D'Annunzio. It was the place. His acolyte Luigi Freddi was the founder of Italian studio cinema, and it was a notorious area for counterfeiting. So counterfeiting and cinema, fascist cinema, got off the ground together. Now, the reason why Fiume is important to the Donbass issue is that they're both layered sovereignty domains where people were vying for domination. There weren't massacres in Fiume at the time, but it's similar in that the vying for nationalism led to the depersonalization of anybody who didn't identify with the nation state of Italy. A person who was born and raised there, loyal there, paperwork all legal and binding, who didn't want to join Italy, which Italy didn't want Fiume to do, um, would be cast out, an outcast, beaten, with risk of dehumanization. Now, multi-layered conceptual vying across the span of just over a century. You have Fiume in the Ukraine, but there's a line connecting them through the Italian cinema of D'Annunzio's partnership with Diaghilev, Gurdjieff, Ouspensky, and the Cubist Italian futurist mafia, who got into cinema and, with the help of Blysender's, conceptualized what Lennon pulled with his Houdini in the AIDS attack. So there's a fascism line from Luigi Freddi's introduction of D.W. Griffith to Benito Mussolini, to the avengement of Hiroshima by Clint Eastwood on the West Coast in 2023. A game called Two Virgins Pussy Ball Clock to the AIDS attack and meant to incite Africa and it used me as the symbol. I was from Bush's ship in the Navy, of why you should be contemptuous of the United States. And they trot out the right wing to come and say, we kicked Jimmy in the head when he was 10. Ho, 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 ho. It's like a Roger Waters sequence in Pink Floyd, The Wall. They come out with all one after another. I kicked Jimmy Crary in the head. Ho, ho, ho. I kicked Jimmy Crary I dragged Jimmy Crary through glass. Ho, ho, ho. I gave Jimmy Crary Michael Reagan's favorite scene. Ha, ha, ha. And this is the way that Clint Eastwood and Roger Waters created a utility function, is what James Child called it, of contempt for America. Gordon explained it to me. He was saying the revolution was successful because everybody had contempt for Tsar Nicholas's little boy because he had consumption. Everybody was contemptuous of the weakling. This is the way Noam Chomsky figured out how they could pull the Green Party apparatus of the New World Order. So what we're looking at here is, she even uses the telltale expression, in the wake, because one of the deluded mind jesters of the royal class poaches by language. He wants to control the United States by claiming he owns how you think. He's a heart washer. He uses music, not just a brainwasher. The brain he scrambles and then he comes in and heart washes. And they're using voodoo of neurological techniques and home invasion for hypnography from professors like Brian Eno. Of course, Susak is in on it. Foucault was in on it. And it was all planned, the COVID elimination, because the fossil fuel industry doesn't want to be held responsible for not being careful with our planet. So what they did, they became they became an equal opportunity employer, and they created a celebrity program with the help of Arnold Schwarzenegger, presenting the new generation as having a stake in supporting them in repairing the damage of ecology that they did. And the new generation should be heard, but they keep withhold from the new generation that the people sponsoring them are the ones who did it. It's a concept known as Moxieland. There's a book about it. The radicals are actually serving the master. And Pena Sinfield and Roger Waters had this all figured out. We can get, plenty of Mick Jagger in with the hotties, but when the time runs out, we have a plan to say that the younger generation has been cheated. They need to turn on the people who we deceived. Because people, they always turn on bystanders. They sacrifice bystanders and stuff. And say, don't you feel better now? Ho, ho, ho. That sacrificed one of the righteous, or that sacrificed one of the black criminals. They just poach. I'm not saying they just kill white people random. They kill black people random. It's hideous mentality known as military sociology. They actually teach it at UW Dialectical. And so what we're dealing with is, what I'm saying is, this book is a heritage statement of this military sociology's planning. It came out in 2020 from Florida. In other words, it was meant to be a discrete. They also came out with The Invention of Life, which is very telltale about Lennon's Houdini, which is about Blas Sanders. And these books are materialized at the same time, not to be too early warning about what happened, but to allow a measure of reflection for the future when people who are sadly scholastically inclined have the so moments that you get when you discover the super story of Access Hollywood's hot wiring machine, the super story that got me on the trail of these people. Lennon's Houdini, The Escape of Adolf Hitler, which they call Walrus, Lazarus, Casper, the double fantasy Casper, and which they symbolize KC, of course, and Two Virgins Moral Ball, we'll call it. And let's see, what was, I always forget, there's four of them. One of them is always elusive, but there's four basic themes. Let's see, The Escape of Weasler, Lennon's Houdini, Two Virgins Moral Ball, and it'll come back to me. It's in my other notes. I have it written down somewhere. But there's four basic elements of the super story that recur again and again in all. Oh, yeah, the Kennedy assassination as revenge for Hiroshima. Those are the four elements that you find in all of their films across the board internationally. It was a Houdini group that went into the room behind the revolving bookshelf. Sergei Eisenstein, Disney, D.W. Griffith, Raoul Walsh, uh, Cecil B. DeMille, Alan Dulles, Kennedy assassination, Revenge for Hiroshima, as this, which Breton broker, that was John Lennon. And then he weaseled out with his Houdini, and they called it Casper because they did also, they're saying Hitler and Lennon came up with a better way to pull this stuff off, and it's called Two Virgins Moral Ball, which they clocked. And Thompson comes from the Jewish Holocaust survivor community. So yeah, that's wrong, but what's new about it? We should have been more careful. Not just the environment, but some of the people who came out of. A friend of mine, Martha Gellhorn, said some of those people will never be the same after the concentration camps. She was lenient towards them, but when she found out what they'd done with me, she was incredibly disturbed. She directed a letter to me saying, which was basically shock and awe, which gives you an idea of the people who George Bush really had in mind by shock and awe. People like Martha Gellhorn. They wanted to shock and awe Eleanor Roosevelt's people into line, get into line with the New World Order. That's what's really been happening. It's sad to say. Of course, they trot. Wolves start World War III, wolves start World War III. Yeah, don't talk about us. Don't talk about us. So we have an obligation to our schools, the Encyclopedia Britannica, even, to get the truth down on paper. That's all I'm doing. I'm just getting an old library clerk. Live by the standard of the American Library Association. Yes, sir. Hats off to the American Library Association. It's a standard known as peer review, academic research. I'm an admirer of some of those scholars in Russia, some of those artists in Russia. They're intelligent, bright people. I'm not trying to start no insurrection mafia. I'm just telling it like it is.